Hey everyone, Emily with Bob's Watches. Today we're talking all about the Rolex GMT-Master II and walking you through the process of setting it up to display 3 different time zones. Also, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on all of our latest video content. Originally designed for pilots to use on intercontinental flights, the Rolex GMT-Master first made its appearance in 1954. With that in mind, the brand's iconic pilot's watch got a major update in the early 1980s when Rolex released the very first GMT-Master II. Unlike the original GMT-Master, where the 12-hour hand was permanently synced with the 24-hour hand, the 2-hour hands on the GMT-Master II were independently adjustable. While this may seem like a small update, this new ability meant that the GMT-Master II could display 2 different time zones at once with just its hands. Therefore, by rotating the bezel to correspond with the correct number of hours offset from the home time zone, just like how things were done on the original GMT Master watches, users could quickly and easily reference an additional 3rd time zone. So, how do you set up your Rolex GMT-Master II to display 3 time zones? Setting the GMT-Master II is done entirely through the winding crown, which has 4 positions, often referred to as positions 0 through 3. Position 0 is when the crown is fully screwed in. This is the position that it should always be in when you are not actively setting the time or date. This ensures that the watch stays properly sealed against moisture and dirt. Position 1 is the position that the crown naturally pops into once it is fully unscrewed from the case. This position allows for manual winding, but not the adjustment of any settings or features. Position 2 is when the crown is pulled out to the first notch. This gives control over the 12-hour hand, which jumps forwards or backwards in 1-hour increments. In this position, the date window will change forwards or backwards as the 12-hour hand passes midnight. However, it is worth noting that GMT-Master II watches don't have a quick set date feature, so turning the winding crown in position 2 jumps the hour hand rather than adjusting the value of the date display. Position 3 is when the crown is pulled all the way out, and this provides access to the traditional time-setting functions. In this position, the seconds hand comes to a stop, and both hour hands plus the minute hand can be adjusted either forwards or backwards by rotating the crown. The first step when setting your Rolex GMT-Master II is to sync up all the hands. While this is not truly necessary in order to set the watch, doing so before you start will make the rest of the setting process significantly easier. To start, fully unscrew the winding crown, letting it move from position 0 to position 1. At this point, you can wind your watch so that it will already have power and will immediately resume running once you are done setting it. Once the watch is fully wound, pull out the winding crown to position 3. This will cause the seconds hand to stop running. From here, rotate the winding crown until all of the hands are pointing straight up at the 12 o'clock marker. At this point, the next step is to set your home time zone, often referred to as reference time. This is indicated by the 24-hour hand on your watch, also known as the GMT hand. Some people choose to set this to GMT or UTC's time, while others prefer to have this track the time of day at their permanent residence. To set your home time zone, keep your crown in position 3 and then rotate it so that the 24-hour hand and minute hand indicate the correct time in your desired home location. It is important to remember that reference time will always be displayed in a 24-hour format, since the GMT hand only makes 1 rotation around the dial each day. Therefore, 6 p.m. will be indicated by the GMT hand pointing to the 9 o'clock location, and 6 a.m. will be when the GMT hand is pointing at the 3 o'clock marker. Once reference time has been set, the next step is to set your local time zone. To do this, push the winding crown back in 1 notch from position 3 to position 2. You will know that you are in the correct position because the 12-hour hand will move when you turn the crown and the seconds hand will have resumed running. At this point, it is important to remember to set the date on your watch, since the Rolex GMT-Master II does not feature a quick set date. Rotating the winding crown will jump the local 12-hour hand forwards or backwards in 1-hour increments. Keep rotating the winding crown until the date display shows the correct value. Once the date display has been set, continue rotating the winding crown so that the 12-hour hand displays the correct time in your current location. It is also important to make sure that you keep track of AM or PM hours during this step, since local time is displayed by a 12-hour hand rather than a 24-hour hand, like the one used for reference time. Assuming you have done all these steps correctly, your GMT hand will show the correct reference time. Your 12-hour hand will display the time in your current location, and the date window will contain the correct value. At this point, the movement of your GMT-Master II is completely set, and you can push in your winding crown and screw it back down to the case, thus returning it to position 0 and restoring its water resistance. So what about the third time zone? Unlike the original GMT Master, the Rolex GMT Master II can display 2 different time zones using just its hands, freeing up its rotating 24-hour bezel as a means to reference a third. To do this, simply rotate the bezel either clockwise or counterclockwise to correspond with the correct number of hours offset from reference time, also known as your home time zone. Therefore, if you have reference time set to UTC and you wish to use your bezel to track the time in Japan, which is 9 hours ahead of UTC, just rotate it counterclockwise until the 9 on the bezel is sitting at the top of the 12 o'clock marker. Your GMT hand will now be pointing to the correct number on the bezel that corresponds with the current time in Japan. With that in mind, it is important to note that since the bezel has been rotated, the 24-hour hand no longer displays UTC time because the Rolex GMT-Master II does not have a secondary 24-hour scale printed on its dial. Therefore, even with its rotating 24-hour bezel, the GMT-Master II is not able to display all 3 zones at once. However, the bezel does offer users a quick and easy way to reference a third, and it has become the single most defining characteristic of Rolex's legendary Pilot's Watch. Although the core concept behind the GMT Master II was first created in the early 1980s, it still remains the gold standard for multi-time zone travel watches, and the current production Rolex GMT Master II is easily one of the most desirable watches in the entire world. Thanks for watching our video on how to set the Rolex GMT Master II to display 3 time zones. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on our latest video content.